All right, in this lesson, we're going to be talking about strings. We're going to introduce to you how do you create strings. You may have figured some things out so far with all of our videos that we've been doing so far, but we wanted to show you there's multiple ways to create strings within Python. What are some good practices as well? So let's go ahead and dive into the code here. So what I have set up is inside Visual Studio Code, I have our Python, I have inside lessons folder. We have the strings.py, and that is going to be our starting point. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and collapse this to save us some space. So strings, right? Strings are a sequence of characters. Strings are used to represent text and contain letters, numbers, symbols, as well as white space, meaning anytime you hit the space bar. Now, it also says on here, strings can be created utilizing single quotes, double quotes, or even triple quotes. And we're going to demonstrate all of those here to you. So let's go ahead and start showing you some of the differences. All right. So if we're going to be utilizing single quotes, it's going to look just like this. They're just the quote marks key right next to the enter key is what you're going to be utilizing for it. And it will work the same. So if I were to print this out for the single quoted string, save it and run it, we do see the hello world. All right. So again, your choice on whether or not you want to use single quotes. Let's go ahead and demonstrate that we can do that exact same thing with double quotes here. And we'll go ahead and print it also. So let's go ahead and save that, run it. And we have this Python is fun being displayed, so the double quotes work as well. Now, something to note on this is if you use a single quote over here, you're going to have to match it up with the single quote there. Likewise, if you have a double quote, you're going to have a double quote on the other side. All right. Now, the last one here is triple quotes. Why would you want to utilize triple quotes? Well, that's just in case you may have multiple lines. So let me show you what that would look like here. And I'm going to go ahead and put this in here. We'll say something like multi-line, and we'll say this is an example of a multi-line string. Notice that I can go ahead and hit the enter key, and it will go to the next line. And then I have to end it with the triple quotes. All right, that's going to be very important when we're doing this one. And so I'm going to go ahead and save that and run this. Once I add a print statement, I'll go ahead and run it and save it, run it. And there we go. We do have it being multiple lines. And to better demonstrate that, I'll go ahead and hit the enter key one more time to just show you that this does work. I'm going to go ahead and run it, and you can now see that they are separated here by one line. All right. So that's the double quote, single quote, triple quote on how you can utilize that with strings. I will say that typically what you'll find is that the double quotes are going to be what you'll be utilizing, and you'll only utilize the triple quotes if you're trying to need multiple lines when you are developing. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to how do we access an individual character inside of a string. All right. That's what we're going to talk about next here. So when it comes to accessing a character inside of a string, strings are actually indexed, and that way you're able to access individual characters based off of their position. And with any typical coding language, Python, JavaScript, for example, everything is indexed and it starts at 0. So let's go ahead and create just a real simple text here. We'll do something like this. Let me go ahead and scroll up just a little bit so it goes up in the view. We'll do text equals, and we'll just do Python. Now, like I said, each letter we're able to access individually. You're going to have to think about this as if we're splitting this up letter by letter, which letter are we wanting? What we're going to have to think about in our minds with programming is everything starts at 0. So when we count Normally as a human, we'd say that this is the first letter. Well, in programming, this is the 0 position, and so on, right? 0, and then the Y would be the 1, for example. So how do we access that? So let's do something like this. We'll say first character equals, and then we're going to call out the variable name that we see right here, which is text. That's what it's referencing. And then we want to grab a hold of the 0 position of the text. And so for this, we'll just go ahead and print first character, and then we'll call out our variable of first character. So let me go ahead and save that and run it. And notice that the first character here is the letter P. It's all capitalized, right? Now, let's go ahead and see what can we do to grab the last character. Well, let's go ahead and create that. We'll do last character, and in the box here, we'll go 1. We'll start off with 0 here. We'll do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I want to grab that last character in there, I can put a 5 in there. I'll go ahead and hit the save button, and we'll go ahead and print it, save it, run it, and now we have that last character of N. So notice I had a 5 in there. Now we can also count backwards, all right, from the end, and that's what it was originally trying to suggest in here, is we can put a -1 in there and get the exact same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and save it and run it. Notice I still get the N. Why would we want to use a -1 instead of the 5? Well, what happens if we put Python rules in here? And we did put the last character in here as 5. We would no longer get our desired letter, which is the S. So if I run this, notice I still get the N, but if I came over here and added the -1, we now have a match for the last letter. So we just made a really dynamic way of grabbing that last letter. And we're going to be giving you challenges later on throughout the course that may test you on this knowledge of making sure that you're able to grab the last letter, for example. All right, so we're able to grab the first, we're able to grab the last. Now, what if you would like to have maybe accessing the subheadings, right? And that's where we can have a start and an end. So let's go ahead and make this another point here. Accessing subheadings, or substrings, I guess. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to take whatever our variable name is, and then inside of the brackets here, right, we can put a start point and an end point. And that's how we're going to determine it. So let's go ahead and do another assignment of the text. We'll do text equals, and we'll do Python programming. And say we wanted to grab the Python aspect of this. So what we're going to do in this, we'll call this one substring. We're going to set that equal to text, and we want to grab the Python out of it. So we want to start at the 0 position, and we want to go all the way down and stop at the 6th position. So that's what that's going to give us. So if I did a print here of substring, save it, run it. Now we did in fact get the Python aspect of it. So I'd recommend you playing around with this and see if you can grab the programming aspect out of it. So feel free to pause the video and give that a try. All right, so hopefully you ended up getting it. If we go ahead and save this, run it, we get the 7 and the 18. Just find that we went all the way to the 6 before. That was our ending point. And then that means we picked it right back up at the 7. And then we go all the way down to the end. Now, one of the things that we know since we wrote this part here is that we would like to start at the 7 and go all the way to the end. You can definitely omit the second number after the colon, and it will go all the way to the end, right? So if I were to hit the play button, again, I get no changing on this. And if I did is fun, we no longer get the programming aspect, we get is fun as well. If I were to save this and then run this, you can see that we got programming is fun. So another side note on this is if you omit a number at the end, it will assume that you want to go all the way to the end of that string. So to get that back, I can just send it back to 18 and run it, and we get programming. So hopefully this is starting to sink in with you all. And the next topic that we're going to talk about here is string operations. There are going to be a few string operations that you're going to want to commit to memory to know how to do. So that way that when you are proposed a problem of that nature, you can know how to search it and find it and use it. So string operations. So Python provides us with several operations that can perform on a string, to include concatenation, to include repeating, and to even calculate the length of the string. So let's talk about string operations. So string operations. Now, if we are wanting to concatenate here, and I have it down here below in our video, if you want to copy it, feel free to. I'll go ahead and explain what's going on. But we have a first name of John, we have a last name of Doe, and we would like to combine that and store it in a variable here called full name. So what we would do is we would type out full plus, and then we have to put a hard-coded space in there in order for it to deliver it as we would read it as a human, right? First name plus, we're going to add a space, and then we have the last name. And then obviously we can print the full name. So let's go ahead and save that, run it, and we get John Doe. All right. Again, if I were to omit this, let me go ahead and delete it. It's just going to concatenate them and smash them together. So let's see what that looks like. You can see that right there, John Doe, right? I'm going to go back to the proper way of concatenating there. Now, if you ever find yourself in the need of repeating something, so we'll put in here repetition. And our example that we're going to use is we're going to repeat the greeting of hello, and we want to do that 3 times. So the way that we're going to do this is we create a variable here called greeting, and then we're going to create another variable here called repeated greeting, and we're just multiplying our hello by 3, and then we're just printing it to the console here. So as you can see, it's going to go hello, 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 and let's see what we get here. Let's go ahead and save it and run it, and we get hello, hello, hello. They're all smashed together. All right. Now the last thing that we'll talk about here is we've learned now how to concatenate them, push them together. We've learned how to have something repeat. And then the other common one that we're going to use a lot in this course is, of course, how do we determine the string length or the string size, right? How many characters are in there? And so in order to calculate the length of a string, we're going to utilize a function that's built into Python, and it's called the length function, but it's shortened to len. As you can see on my line 53, we have the len of text. So let's walk through this line by line. If we look at line 52, we're setting text equal to Python, and then the length here, we're utilizing that function, and we're supplying it our variable, which contains the word Python, and then we print the length of it. It's going to print out 6 because that's how many characters it has in it. Now, this is one of the cases where it actually starts off with 1, right? And so if we're saying, we're counting the length here of it, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. right? So this is one of the instances where the program actually starts off with 1 and finishes the count. Now, the thing that you also have to keep in mind is that if we were to put Python is fun, and we're counting this out, right? I'm going to go ahead and run it. We get 13. If Python was 6, and then the is 7, 8, the fun is 9, 10, 11, where did the 13 come from? Well, it's including spaces in there as well. And notice that we have a space between the Python and a space between the is and the fun, right? So spaces do count when it comes down to the length. So that's something that you want to keep track of and understand, all right? So that kind of sums us up for strings, and you're going to take this and use it all the time. So please try to commit those things to memory, so that way it just makes your life throughout this course here a little easier to know how to create a string and how to concatenate them. We're going to go over other string types of methods out there that might be a little bit easier to use if we're thinking about concatenating them. So please watch the next few videos that we're going to go over it.